Hi guys. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself first before I dive into everything. So my name's Todd. I'm 35. I have since literally before I was born, through childhood, teenage, adulthood, I've been on a very tumultuous mental health journey. Um, right now, I've been diagnosed with um, borderline personality disorder um, as a result to trauma. Um, so before I go ahead and start diving deep, it's going to be real, it's going to be hard hitting, it's going to be confronting for some viewers. Um, but this is my journey, and if in any way what I'm doing offends anybody, hurts anybody, I do apologise, but this isn't about you, it's about me and what I've gone through. It's going to be some of this will be quite graphic with how I explain it. I'm very blunt when it comes to it, and I think that's the dissociation factor from my bipolar and my not bipolar borderline personality. But we'll get into that diagnosis at a later stage. Um, all right. So my mental health journey began a long, long time before I was even born. It's a matter of the cycle repeating itself. Um, and the lack of back 60 years ago with the relative person that I'm about to talk about. Just not enough evidence was gained into it back then that would be able to help a person like myself today or other people like that. So the person I'm referring to is my mother. So my mother was the eldest of of three. So she had two young brothers. So I'm going off what she's kind of told me her journey is, but it's too triggering for her, so she doesn't really go into much detail. But the detail that she did explain kind of explains a lot, especially of like a very similar sort of situation. So my mum's first real hard-hitting trauma that hit her was when she was quite a young child. Didn't really go into like the relationship she had with her parents, but this one thing that stood out to her. So apparently, she went. Her parents decided to go on a vacation without kids. Locked them in a house with no food, apart from basically staple milk, butter, eggs, nothing else. And especially if there was other things to cook, being a young child, not really knowing how to do it. She said they were gone for a few days to a week or something like that. And she had to feed her brothers. And apparently she said that she fed the kids butter the whole time that they were away. And while they were away, or I'm pretty sure, yeah, she said while they were away, people were concerned. Anyway, docs got involved, removed the children from the household, and they were all placed into foster care. Now, she doesn't really go into the whole, like, the siblings were split up, still had contact, and it was just, from a young age, she was a young teenager, and one of her foster parents had raped her. And that set into motion her journey through pretty bad mental health. And then as she got older and her brothers got older, her youngest brother couldn't take life anymore. So he hung himself from a chimney, tied a rope around. I think they said he sat on a chair and then kicked the chair away and hung himself. That was pretty hectic. Yeah, so she ends up going through high school, meets my dad, they were friends. My mum ends up getting pregnant with my half brother to another man. And then shortly after birth, my parents get together and they move into my grandparents' place. And my grandparents took my brother Ben under his wing, and yeah, he was an integral part of the family. They were those two together should never have been together. It was all drugs and alcohol. Dad was my father. He had a blessed upbringing. He may say different, but had two loving parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, things like that. So it was a pretty kind of normal childhood. Dad was just a rebellious person. He just, from a young age, he got involved with weed, and he'd been smoking since he was about 12, cigarettes, alcohol, all of that included. During his lifetime, he got involved with bikie gangs. He got involved, just selling weed, drugs, and things like that. And then when they got together, it was just the mesh, just with mental health from my mother, and then adding substances to it, created a lot of problems. And then when they got married, I think my mum was 21, my dad was like 18, 19. They got married, and this is where you get a lot of stories from my family telling about how my mum's behaviour, she was clearly disturbed. On their wedding day, they had it at my grandparents' place down on the Central Coast in Saratoga, a little town called Saratoga. Our family was so welcoming of her that it triggered a lot of abandonment stuff for her, like afraid that they were going to leave and things like that. But she was very, in her life, learned how to manipulate people very well. And in saying that, that's a horrible thing to do. It's slightly narcissistic in a way, but it was a way to survive, and I understand that because I'll get into that later on with myself. So on their wedding day, having it at the place, my grandparents used to just love having family around, love having people around. They'd cook these big, when it was affordable back then, all the families would come around, cousins, aunties, uncles, like distant relations would all gather. It was like a pinnacle meeting point whenever my grandparents would throw a do. So all my family came around, and there was a spare room that my nan told all her guests and family, pop your belongings in here, right. During the wedding, they had what would you call very abusive, drinking, yelling at one another. So it was a really rocky start to the wedding day. Um, and then it was like the ceremony came around. Um, then it was like the dinner afterwards. And while all this was happening, my mother decides to go into the spare room and steal. And she, yeah, steal from our family. The family knew, she denied it. Not a whole lot more was discussed about it, just basically it speaks for itself really in the behaviour. Um, and we'll leave it at there, and we'll continue with the next video and the journey. Thank you for watching.